Monotype.
Welcome to Creative Characters from Monotype, the show where we meet the people working at the intersection of type and everyday life. So I'm your host, Phil Garnham, and today I'm chatting with Marta Cerdà Alimbau. She's a Barcelona-based designer known for her expressive work that explores the boundaries between typography and illustration. Her work is kind of the work that reminds me of why I got into this in the first place. She's really influenced by the 70s sort of funk. She's also really curious about technology, which brings like this really nice dynamism in her portfolio. And I guess like one of the reasons I wanted Marta on the show today is because her whole ethos really kind of cuts against this pressure of now. Marta advocates for a slower and more artisanal approach to creative work, and I find that really refreshing.
I think that when work takes longer, it gives you the possibility to go beyond the first obvious solution. So it allows ideas to be more mature, to be questioned, to be edited, to see it from a different angle. And that is where depth appears.
So my co-host today is Carl. We all know Carl, but he's here to preview this episode with me. So, hey Carl.
Hey Phil. Not sure if everybody knows me, but we'll go with that.
Yeah, you and Charles, you're staples in this podcast by now.
Yeah, I guess you're probably right. So what should people listen out for in this episode?
Well, in this episode, I think we talk quite a lot about the time that the designer needs to think. We're in this weird race to the bottom of like thinking in a way, like to be more and more efficient all the time. But actually, I think creative thinking needs space to breathe. So I think we explore it quite heavily in this episode.
I feel like central to this whole conversation around AI and increased expectations for speed is that loss of thinking time. So much of the creative process happens away from the desk, away from the computer or the paper or whatever you're working on, and happens while you're wandering around, walking, talking with friends. So protecting that and making space for thinking is really essential. How does Marta sort of balance those dual pressures of delivering work and making space for thinking?
I think she really just allows herself the time to explore craft a lot more. And I think because of the nature of her work, clients go into collaborating with her a lot more in that headspace. And I think that idea of craft and creative process is something that the listeners will get a lot out of from this conversation.
Sounds like a really, really essential conversation for our times. So hope our listeners get something out of it and maybe come away feeling reassured in their desire to slow down a little bit. So I'll turn it over to you and Marta, and hope everyone enjoys the episode.
So we live in a time where everything is meant to be faster, easier, cleaner, more instant. I guess more content, more tools, more images, more output. And yet the things that really stay with us rarely arrive like that. They usually come in somewhat slower forms, like from judgment, from memory, from a way of seeing that takes time to build. So my guest today is Marta Cerdà, a designer whose work many people will know. Her work includes, or our clients include Nike, The Guardian, The New York Times, Vogue, Spotify, Esquire. I mean, is there anyone you haven't worked with? I'm not sure.
Yes.
But I guess you could say your work could be described as inventive, hybrid, sort of typographic lettering meets expressive illustration / art, graphic design. We're not going to embrace our egos too much. You know, this conversation really isn't about fame or style or the neat little highlight reel of a creative career. It's about what design still means when speed is everywhere, literally, when taste is flattened into trends, and when the pressure to make is often greater than the time to think. So I guess this is a conversation about how somehow we survive in design. So Marta, yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Obviously your work is fantastic. We love it. It's beautiful stuff. And I'm just wondering, for those that haven't sort of experienced what you're kind of doing, like, are you able to just sort of share how you approach your design practice?
Yeah, well, I think I consider myself like a graphic designer, and my work lives in the broad terrain between illustration and typography. Sometimes I feel, that I've been like incredibly inspired by designers in the 70s, like Pushpin Graphics, the way they were working with typography and lettering and illustration too, that kind of designer that was multifaceted.
You see that in your work, actually. I think that, especially that sort of like psychedelic, through color, through curves, through swashes, splashes. Yeah, I think you do pick up on that vibe of like the 70s.
I lived in LA for a little bit. I got a little bit of California, like with Griffin, and I have a lot of books from this period too.
Where did that come from, do you think?
I don't know. I've been attracted to that period since I'm a teenager. The music from that period, I always say I wish I had been a teenager in the 70s. No, 60s, 70s, 80s. Yeah, I feel afterwards it's a bit boring.
I don't know. Like, I think you can definitely see like the musicality of your type in your typography, just like how curvy, and you use a lot. Actually, funnily enough, you use a lot of like typefaces that have wall serifs on them, and like I'd say your work is quite high drama. Like it's quite thick and thin. You're in the extremes of like typographic personality.
Yeah. I think at the end, like how we design is very related of how we are as a person.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's a fight against yourself. No, I don't want to be like this. So then you want to be curvy, even though you are rigid. And then, I have a lot of inner fights like this.
So, I mean, I first became aware of your work. I think it was at Off in Barcelona, that talk a few years ago on the main stage. And then you had your self-published kind of book just come out, Type to Image. And now, of course, you have your latest book, I guess, which was, I'm going to make a complete mess of this. Sombreve el diseño. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like surviving design.
Surviving design.
Yeah.
Exactly. Perfectly titled for this conversation today. Yeah, your books talk about context, memory, and time. Which of those do you think design culture currently undervalues the most?
Well, I think that context is inevitable, right? Our work will always be wounded by the moment where we live in. The problem with context now is that it's shaped by this frenetic productivity relationship and with time. And I think that pushes us very easily towards superficiality, which by its own, I don't think it's bad. But I think that when it becomes the standard, then it's when it becomes problematic. Memory, on the other hand, it's different. Right? It doesn't come by default. Mm-hmm. It requires attention, it requires intention, like a willingness to understand and to make an effort to connect with what came before. So it requires time. So at the end, I think that it's time what's probably the most problematic of the three elements, because it affects absolutely everything. No? When time is devalued, then everything else becomes like thinner. No? Memory becomes more superficial, context loses its depth, and what is most important, it can be manipulated.
Do you feel like you're drawn in occasionally into having to kind of educate the client on time?
I'm pretty clear about timing, and sometimes you can be afraid, like, if I say I need more time, they're going to run away. But a lot of times they can understand because they are human like us, and they can understand that time is a valuable thing that will ultimately give more value to their product. And when you say so, it's because you want it to go to a better place. It's not that you want more time to do other things,
Especially like RFPs as a graphic designer, when you ask to pitch for a piece of work or you're asked to be involved, I think there's a creative anxiety around like pitching the true amount of time. I used to see that a lot in my former sort of type design work, that, you'd be up against other foundries pitching for the same work. And some of them were pitching completely unrealistic timeframes just to win the work, to meet expectations. For well that those expectations, those proposed timelines can't be met. Do you experience that? Do you feel like you're under pressure almost to
Yeah.
overpromise like all the time?
I mean, I think we are in a very difficult time of history because we are pressured a lot. The economy is not like in its best moment. So we are in need for projects.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to the original question around context as well. Do you feel like maybe sort of younger designers are almost pressured to kind of not be as concerned about context and more push more into like just having an immediate style or finding a style themselves more than thinking about actually what is needed?
As a teacher, I've seen it that many students jump directly to the production part without even thinking what they're doing, and
you got to learn the tools, like tool up.
Yeah.
No.
But you need to figure out first what you want to do and investigate, which I think it's one of the most beautiful parts of what we do. No, that part before starting working. No.
Yes.
Of investigating, that's a huge part of the work that we do.
I agree. Undoubtedly. And I think neither of us would probably be in this room now if we hadn't spent lots of time thinking about ideas and trying to uncover that sort of intersection of different things to make something new and different as an output. But you defend this like slower, more artisanal sort of side of creative work. What kind of quality do you think sort of shows up in your work when it takes a little bit longer or you're not putting yourself under that kind of deadline?
I think that when work takes longer, it gives you the possibility to go beyond the first obvious solution. So it allows ideas to be more mature, to be questioned, to be edited, to see it from a different angle. And that is where depth appears, usually. But also, I think time gives space for something that is less controllable, which may be the unexpected. Then the unexpected can only flourish when there is room. There is time to detour, make mistakes, hesitate. So it's not that the quality of time means that something can be more polished, but about craft. Whatever craft means, but it can show up in different ways.
Do you think there's something around like trying to find like your own personal relationship to the project and making sure that almost like you've done a worthy kind of due diligence on the project, that you put enough of yourself into it, like to make it an honest piece of work in some way?
When there's no time, usually it's normal. Like you begin repeating old formulas, because when there is no time, like, okay, you need this in 2 weeks, something that would need 3 months, you will absolutely need to go for a formula kind of design, or you will repeat things that you've already done before, maybe. And that will bring nothing new to the table, not for the client, but not for yourself either.
Yeah. I mean, do you think there's like even a correlation between like how successful the projects are based on how much time you've spent? Are those projects you've done that are have been really short timeframes that you're still really proud of because you've executed quickly, or is it the stuff that you spend more time with that gets more traction?
There's not necessarily a correlation, but the ones that I had like time, I fight until I get to the right place, and maybe it takes like a long time because I began to fight the wrong fights and then whatever. And then for the shorters, I usually mistrust when it's fast. But it's true that in some occasions, but like super rare occasions, it goes fast, but because you've been fighting other fights, sometimes you think, oh, I've been lucky, it's been so fast, but it hasn't been actually fast. That project maybe began on another project, doing another proposal that you were starting to open a door, but it feels like it's fast, but it's like, no, you did have the job some time ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That idea of like opening the door is actually really interesting. And we're rushing around like crazy, especially in the world of AI and all these new tools. There is something uniquely sort of timely about design and creativity. I mean, I've always felt a little bit guilty, like if I use the first idea, or if it suddenly goes through the process, that was too easy.
Yeah, me too.
like, did I really do enough? What did I do right by the client? There's a designer responsibility there as well. But I will move on for anyone getting annoyed by the conversation about time.
But I think this is something that we all suffer from mistrusting ourselves if it comes fast. But sometimes a rare occasion happens.
Yeah.
And it's not like a casuality. It's because you've been maturing this for a long time.
I mentioned memory as well as an idea, and obviously you discussed that in your work. And I'm interested, like, what does memory give a designer that references and mood boards can't?
Yeah, I think memory builds like culture, identity, and most importantly, it builds judgment. No? Of course, like references and mood boards can be useful, super, super useful. And as I said, like when students, I see that they skip this part of the process. It gets me on my nerve. But memory, above all, it reveals us that the blank page is just an illusion, no? That nothing starts from scratch.
Uh-huh.
And that all of us, the ones that live in this planet, the one that left us already, we do everything together. Also, memory gives us like an inner measure. It shapes our sense of what has meaning. So a mood board can suggest like a path or a language, but memory helps you decide whether if that language is necessary or not. But I also think that memory has like also a downside. It's like a double-edged sword, I think, because it can anchor you and make you more rigid and maybe too afraid of letting go. And I listened to this Phil Garnham interview. He says that it's better to have a naive person in charge of people who know exactly what they're doing, because precisely the person who has no idea what he's doing will do something innovative. You know? So sometimes memory can be like an anchor. Huh?
From what you're saying, it always sounds like a subconscious memory. Like you're not calling upon immediate references. It's like, and it's the same way we interpret typefaces. We have an immediate response, like we feel it in our nervous system.
Totally. And that can only be built with memory, no? Little by little, but it's in there and we don't know why, but it's that inner clock or the thing that tells you where is the north.
Your compass.
A compass. It's a bit like an inner compass.
Yeah. It's funny. It's just sparked an idea in my head that a friend of mine, Matthew Rod, I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, but previously had an interview with Eric Spiekermann for, I think it was like Meta Design back in the day. And Matt was told essentially like, no, we can't employ you because you haven't experienced enough. Like you haven't traveled the world. It's like, we love your work, but you got to go and travel. Just take a year, go travel and then come back. Matt's a brilliant designer, he's done some great work, but it's like, having that as almost like a prerequisite to like evolving your design work. I think, it's kind of like hitting on the same idea, I think is what you're saying. Yeah,
that's super interesting. I haven't heard about that.
Yeah. And I'll probably be told off for saying it, but do you think contemporary design is becoming too detached from context?
Yeah, I think that often. And this over-attachment to consumers and can sometimes lead to the opposite, not to the detachment. Mm-hmm. This is what Rick Poynor says in this book that I found amazing, Why Graphic Culture Matters. He says, extreme functionalism tends to provoke a sense of distrust in people, no? Who's not stupid. People can see if their data has been used to sell them things in a particular way. And I think data and analysis are valuable tools to understand and optimize the impact of design, but they should not dictate the creative process in this Orwellian way that sometimes we see now, no? Because nothing disruptive, nothing provocative, mostly nothing interesting usually comes out of that. It's just exhausting repetition, no?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you see that in all forms of data-driven design. You can see it in verticals, just the way that like fashion has to look a certain way, or washing up liquid has to look a certain way, or something. There's just like an aesthetic to things, and there's no like sense that actually it can be a different way. It's always like, oh no, there's 3 or 4 other competitors doing it this way. We have to fit in. What I'm saying is, like, in terms of like context, like, oh, you can't be this thing if you look differently, which I think is just so weird and ridiculous. And actually the best projects and the best brands, I think, are the ones that look different and the ones that
Exactly.
you remember. Yeah. That's branding, you know?
Exactly. But I think that's happening to culture in general. You see music and you hear music from the past, not everything, but I mean in general.
Oh, totally.
And it's all being flattened down, and it hears the same something that is done now. And then you hear a song from early 2000s, sometimes it looks the same. While when you look more backwards, I think there was more difference.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And I think there's, especially in digital as well, like I think there's like there's kind of a weird like move for branding. Maybe it's more like creative operations people that they are more focused on meeting that digital landscape and the expectation of the substrate, the device, as opposed to actually what are the values and the sentiment and the positioning. And especially with typefaces. Typefaces are designed often with purpose and like a vision, and that type designer thinks, I'm going to make this thing because I think it will do really well here or perform this kind of task. But now we've just kind of whittled all of that down into just the same font with lots of different quirks, but everyone looks the same. We're losing purpose a little bit in design to fit in.
Maybe, yeah. But we need to give room for renewal, no?
Yeah, I like that idea of renewal. And I do think ultimately, like in this AI path we are currently on, and I've been saying it for years, but like there'll be a swing back, and there always is, like, to character and personality and real branding, like branding that makes a difference. So getting back to, I guess, like the AI theme, I guess if speed is kind of now expected, how do you protect kind of the depth in work? What would your advice be to, let's say, the in-house designer working on an internal campaign and has to get their stuff out?
Yeah.
How do they find that depth?
I think it's by protecting the process, because there is this paradox, that technology and technological advancements are supposed to save us time, but the time it saves, it's really used to live better. We use it to do more, produce more, respond more quickly, instead of creating space for happiness or for a depth. In that sense, I'm optimistic. I think we've become into a place where the production is so automated, and we know that this is happening because it happens in other fields in life, that we should be able to make a good use of it. So what I try to do is to protect the process, because I think it's where everything lies down, and to allow myself to make more mistakes and to somehow protect this kind of artisanal methodology, because we're not meant to give up the process.
Okay, let's talk about AI. Yeah, I mean, what is the real job of the designer now in the world of AI?
Well, I think one of the places is exactly what we've been talking about, to recognize these spaces that cannot be left to data alone, or that those spaces that didn't even got into data analysis, or that data didn't even catch well, to take cultural responsibility within them, and to defend the human bonds, local design, and forms of meaning that cannot be simply machine generated. Because design is also, it's part of culture. Sometimes we forget that design is part of culture. It's like craft that has been there for centuries. Design is also the visual testimony of the context. So,
is a designer's role almost like a little bit, is it different to what it used to be? Have we moved more into like being curators, editors?
Editors, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think what will mostly prevail for sure is the editing part, We were, and we will be forever editors.
Is that become more important, our ability to prompt ideas out of a machine, than drawing or picking up a pencil?
I don't trust the machine. Maybe I should, but we sometimes as a designer say this shape is not that important. I think shape is super important, and we should not leave it to these tech emperors, because it will affect us in a way that we cannot even imagine. Like I would mistrust everything that comes out of those machines. That's my first impression always, like, okay.
I think that's healthy, like healthy skepticism.
Yeah. I think that's how we should relate. All the fields should relate with AI like this. Yeah.
So there's no question that the craft of design is changing, and the speed of the change feels like it's also reflected in that delivery speed, as we kind of discussed. I mean, are you benefiting, do you think, from the speed, any speed in your practice? Does time equals money? Is it even something you think about that much? Do you impose control over, like, sort of the economics sort of side, or is it all about the idea? Is it you have to deliver the thing? It doesn't matter how long it takes; it has to be right.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. For me, it's still the same. And I think even the lecture I was giving like 10 years ago, I was saying time is gold, and when you see something that someone took a lot of time to make, you automatically think that this is valuable. So I think that speed can be useful in some specific parts of the process, but not in the creation part.
Do you think like the client sees it that way? Do you think our customers like are becoming less quality conscious?
Probably all the society is getting, Yeah.
I wonder if like it's a race to the bottom of craft. Are we losing that?
I don't know. I began working, my first job was in 2004, and I think we already had that sentiment that no one was valuing this. And I remember when I went to live in Amsterdam, we were doing some meetings with designers like once a month. And once I said, well, at least here in the Netherlands, like population in general and clients have more respect towards graphic design, and they understand the value. And they were like, no way, no. This is the opposite. But in general, this is something that has been happening, I don't know, maybe since the 90s, or I don't know when it began. But it's something that we had to fight always. But maybe now more than ever, no? Because a machine can seem to make it.
Yeah.
Which is not making it, it's different.
It does a good job of impersonating the thing that we do, but not being authentically believable. What do you think is important for a young designer to kind of protect about, I guess, traditional design practice or the way we do things now? Is there something that we need to really hold dear and wrap up in cotton wool and make it our baby?
Yeah. To tell to the kids, you say to the kids that they are growing up, yeah. I mean, it's the process. Like when I teach a class and someone comes like, well, yes, this. I think it's the process, and it doesn't matter if you get to the wrong place. It's natural to get to wrong places, and not always projects end well because we are not machines. But we try our best and we dig, and we need to embrace the fight. I mean, designing, the process is a fight. Like, it's not like a dance, like a nice dance. It's a fight, and no pain, no gain, no, they say.
That's what my physio said this morning.
Did it hurt?
My shoulder injury, yeah. What would you most fiercely defend about your own creative practice? Would it be time? Would it be taste, craft, or doubt?
I think that it's doubt, because doubt is what at the end protects work from becoming automatic. And it's that curiosity of thinking, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? Taste and craft all matter, of course. But doubt is what keeps them alive. And it's something that I suffer a lot from, maybe because I have ADHD or whatever, but I doubt from the very smallest thing in my everyday life. I'm a little bit like neurotic, like it feels like a sickness, but sometimes I need to remind myself, like, okay, doubt is not a weakness.
Nice.
And it's probably the place where responsibility begins. It's a place that puts you in a vulnerable place.
Yeah. Would you say there's a degree of like imposter syndrome or something like that? Do you feel that? I mean, doubt obviously comes with the imposter syndrome question.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's
I think that's healthy.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in general in society we erase everything that takes a little bit of suffering or a little bit of annoying and sometimes these bad things.
They're mechanisms for growth.
And it takes you more to a responsibility place.
Yeah, you're reminding me of a conversation I had with my daughter at the weekend where she's 14 and I just asked her to put some washing out in the garden. Putting the washing line up, she didn't know how to do it. She looked scared of this like contraption, the twirly whirly. I was just like, what are you doing? And she looked, is that also that imposter syndrome being actually put into a position where she had that doubt. She's not done that before. And it's just like, no, you have to embrace the weird, horrible feelings that come up in your body because that's where how you progress.
Exactly.
Okay, I kind of got one more question. What is your favorite piece of work? What do you value the most? If there's one piece of work that you want in that design hall of fame?
I think two that are done for the people in my town. One is for Castellers, which is the human tower team in my town. They are like the best ones. In Catalonia. It's like 2 hands and 2 feet. It's a poster that can also like be tiled. And that I was like so proud of doing it. And then also the portrait of the patron saint of my town, Saint Felix. So he's like the Elvis Presley of my town. And so every year some artist of the town is asked to do a portrait of him. And this has been going on since the 19th century. So being asked to do this portrait was like, wow. This is something that will stay there like forever, and it had so much impact because when you work for general clients, the work tends to be very abstract. But when you do things that are local, you can see the impact, and that is super rewarding, and that's really nice.
The Elvis Presley of your town. That's incredible. Marta, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a really fascinating conversation and your insights have given us all plenty of areas to rethink, I think, in terms of our own creative practices. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. Thank you.
To check out Marta's work, go to martacerdà.com. That's Marta, M-A-R-T-A, Cerdà, C-E-R-D-A.com. Or follow her on Instagram at Marta Cerdà.
Thanks for listening. If you like our show, please subscribe, rate us, and share us with a friend. Creative Characters is brought to you by Monotype. It's produced by Christopher Olin and Mia Sullivan. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Take care.